Hello, everyone. We hope you can hear me. We hope you are all well, and we thank you for registering for this webinar presenting the ASEM program of the Wallonia Brussels Federation. My name is Alexa Verkruijs, and I'm project manager for this for international relations at ARES, which is the Academy for Research and Higher Education. For the next hour, we will be presenting our ASEM program and answering any questions you may have about it. Please ask your questions in the chat room, and we'll try to answer as many as we can after the presentation. If you have any questions relating to a specific situation, we advise you to send them to us by email afterwards. This webinar is recorded and can be viewed afterwards on our webpage. So the ASEM program from the Wallonia Brussels Federation is managed by ARES, which is in fact the Federation of Higher Education Institutions in the Wallonia Brussels Federation, which is the French-speaking part of Belgium and which will be referred to here as the FWB. ARES brings together 5 universities, 19 university colleges, 16 arts colleges, and 81 adult education colleges. And as a public interest organization, its missions are actually to support higher education institutions of the FWB in their teaching, research, and community service missions. It organizes and facilitates dialogue between institutions of the FWB and with external partners. It encourages collaboration between them while respecting their autonomy, and it monitors the development of the range of courses on offer to ensure its overall coherence and its relevance to the job market in the FWB. The Global ASEM program is designed to promote the mobility of higher education students and professors between Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. So ASEM is actually made up of sub-programs through which the participating member states finance exchanges of students and or professors from 2 partner institutions, one from Europe and the other one from the Asia-Pacific region. As of today, 5 countries are actually are still actively involved in the ASEM program: Korea, Singapore, Thailand, Sweden, and the Wallonia Brussels Federation. The 3 objectives of the program are first to promote an increase in balanced exchanges of students and professors between Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. So it acts as a real incentive to encourage more students, professors, and researchers to take part in mobility schemes, and the idea of not supporting the mobility of one individual, but an exchange between 2 institutions actually further encourages the idea of collaboration and strengthening the links between the partner institutions. The second objective is to help set up regular exchanges program between higher education institutions in the 2 regions, which demonstrates once again that the aim of this program is really to create links between 2 institutions that will actually endure over time. And the third objective is to strengthen cooperation and dialogue between the 2 regions. So now, what about the ASEM Wallonia Brussels program more specifically? Our program is aimed at members of the academic or scientific staff from higher education institutions so that they can undertake a reciprocal mobility, which means that the professor or the researcher from the FWB will travel to the country of his or her partner in the Asia-Pacific region and vice versa. The Asian partner must necessarily come from an institution from one of the 22 partner countries of the ASEM program, which are those mentioned here on this slide. These countries do not vary over the years. It has always been, it is always the same ones. There is no particular indication as to the discipline in which the partners work and which will be the subject of the project for which the scholarship is awarded. So the two partners can work on the same project, which is actually the vast majority of cases, but this is not compulsory. For example, one of the two partners may be working on a project in the field of physics and the other on a project in the field of mathematics, but there must be an interest in both partners working together and visiting each other's institutions. If the duo is selected to receive a scholarship, they will receive 7,000 euros to be divided between the two partners in a ratio that has been chosen by them. So the IRS does not intervene in this decision. The 7,000 and the 7,000 euros will be used to cover travel costs and per diem, but we will go into more detail on this later. The duration of each partner's mobility must be a minimum of 18 days and a maximum of 60 days, including travel days. This is a prerequisite for the scholarship to be awarded, so it should be carefully discussed by the partners beforehand. They must ensure that their position and personal situation allow them to carry out a mobility lasting at least 18 days. The mobilities must take place between August 1st of the current year and August 31st of the following year. The duos selected this year will have to carry out their mobility between August 1st, 2024 and August 31st, 2025. They do not have to travel at the same time, the aim being to enable them to meet at their respective institutions and work together on their project. And this is actually often an opportunity for the host partner to show their partner around the institution's campus, the scientific equipment they might have, their colleagues, the institution's authorities, and so on. And last but not least, a total of 7 scholarships will be awarded, so 7 applications will be retained at the end of the selection process. We will now go through the conditions for applying for an ASEMDUO scholarship. I've already mentioned it. Applicants must be part of the academic or scientific staff of a higher education institution in the FWB or in an Asia-Pacific partner country. The position of researcher or professor must be their main position, which means that it must be at least a half-time position, so 50%, and this must be clearly stated in the resume of each applicant, which will be attached to the application. Students and PhD students are not eligible to the scholarship. This is a question that we get frequently asked. So if the main occupation of one applicant is to carry out a PhD, they are not eligible for an ASEMDUO scholarship. Emeritus and honorary professors are not eligible either. The position of professor or researcher must be fully exercised at the time of the application and at the time, of course, of the mobility of each partner. And last but not least, teaching assistants are not eligible for the ASEMDUO scholarship either. The condition is to have a researcher or professorial position as such. The institutions to which applicants belong must be recognized or accredited by the competent authorities in their countries. And as the ASEMDUO program aims to create or strengthen collaborations between FWB institutions and institutions in partner countries, it is required that the authorities of each of the two institutions either already have signed an academic cooperation agreement, or if not such agreement already exists, they must sign a declaration of intent that demonstrates their willingness to sign an academic cooperation agreement within the next 2 years. This declaration of intent can be written on the same document signed by the authorities of each institution or on two separate documents. That does not matter. And to answer also a question that we get frequently asked, by competent authorities, we mean either the rectorate or directorate of the institution or the vice rectorate responsible for academic affairs. We will now go through the various selection criteria on which the members of the ASEMDUO jury base their assessment of the applications. First, the originality of the project, which means that its contribution is new, innovative, or different from what already exists and is known in the field. And this can be, for example, an original research project with new questions that have not yet been sufficiently explored, the use of new or little explored methodologies of techniques, the collection of original data, and so on. Second, the scientific, academic, or artistic quality of the applicants, and this can be shown with a list of publications or co-publications with the partner institution, research or artistic projects, exhibitions, applicants' academic career, and so forth. Third, the degree of internationalization of the project, which are the opportunities for developing collaborations that go beyond the project itself. And this can be shown, for example, in explaining in the application form to what extent will this exchange enable the development of new joint programs, new mobility schemes, new co-publications, and so forth, or in explaining if there is a possibility of opening up the project to institutions in other countries, for example. The other criteria are the expected impact of the scholarship on the applicant's activities and career path, the expected impact of the scholarship on the applicant's institution, the justification of the duration of the stay, and this can be explained by detailing the activities, meetings, classes, or collect of data that will, for example, be undertaken during the stay. The quality of the links between the FWB institution and the Asia partner institution. So we'd like to know here what are the current collaborative links between the two institutions if some already exist. The relevance of the financial support granted by ARES to the applicants, and the complementary nature of the project submitted by the partners if the projects are different. So this year, we reviewed some elements of the program to respond more effectively to the feedback received in recent years from scholarship holders and members of the jury of the program, for example. It has been decided to assess the degree of internationalization of the project rather than its scientific, academic, or artistic quality. And the aim here is to encourage the partners to give their project a concrete impact on the development of collaboration between the two institutions. Until last year, the scholarship, so a scholarship of 5,000 euros was awarded to 10 duos, but we were frequently told that this amount was not sufficient to cover the costs that were incurred by the mobility. So it was decided to increase the scholarship to 7,000 euros, but so to reduce the number of beneficiary duos to 7. And so far, one of the conditions of the program was that each mobility had to last at least 21 days, including travel days. But it has been decided to reduce this period to 18 days instead of 21, still including travel days, in order to facilitate mobility, which can sometimes prove complicated when a professor, for example, has to devote 3 full weeks to this mission in their course program. And last but not least, scholarship holders are now asked to ensure that in carrying out their projects under the ASEMDUO program, they fully intend to respect human rights and are fully aware of the dangers associated with dual use misuse. The partners of the duo who get a scholarship divide it up as they wish. So the 7,000 euros can be divided 50%, and this is generally the case, or a higher amount can be allocated to one of the two partners if this is what they both wish. This is entirely up to the duo, and ARES does not intervene in this decision, which is binding on the two partners and ARES in the agreement that is signed by the three parties afterwards. The individual scholarship will be used to cover transport costs and daily allowance, so the per diem. Transports are booked through AWS, which works with the travel agency. And before booking, the travel agency will make 3 travel proposals, which will be submitted to the scholarship holder. And it is, of course, possible for the scholarship holder to book his or her own transport tickets. But in this case, the tickets are not reimbursed by ARES, and this cost is not deducted from the scholarship. So in this case, the scholarship holder will receive the full amount of their scholarship in per diem. But this rule suffers some exception that we will see in a few minutes. So how are per diem calculated? An example will be shown on the next slides, but it is the amount of the individual scholarship from which transport costs are deducted, and the total amount of per diem is limited to the daily allowance multiplied by the number of days of the mobility. Let's imagine, for example, a duo made up of a partner from the FWB and a partner from Japan. These two partners decide to divide the 7,000 scholarship in half, so each receives 3,500 euros. The daily allowance for the partner traveling to Belgium is 100 euros per day, and the daily allowance for the scholarship holder traveling to Japan is 105 euros. And this is written in the code for application, but the daily allowances for each country are determined by the ministerial order from January 2023. Let's take the case of the scholarship holder from FWB going to Japan. He decides to travel to Japan in March 2025, so he leaves Belgium on March 1st and lands back in Belgium on March 28th, making a total of 28 days, including travel days. The maximum amount of per diem that can be granted to him is therefore 105 euros multiplied by 28 days, which makes 2,940 euros. ARES spent 1,500 euros on his flight ticket, so follow me here. 3,500 minus 1,500 makes 2,000. So he will get 2,000 euros in per diem. This is okay because it is still within the maximum authorized limit of 2,940 euros. The question is now, how will this per diem be paid? Flight tickets are booked several months in advance, and be careful not to book too late as the price of flight tickets rise quickly, which can have a significant impact on the amount of per diem that will be paid afterwards. The per diem of 2,000 euros is paid in 2 installments. The first is equivalent to 80% of the total amount of the individual scholarship minus transport costs. So in this case, this makes 1,300 euros. This amount will be paid to him a few days before his departure. The second installment is equivalent to 20% of the total amount of his scholarship, which means here 700 euros. He will receive this amount when he submits his final report, which must be sent to us no later than 2 months after the date of his return, so here, May 28, 2025. The ARES does not ask to receive any proof of expenses incurred by the scholarship during the mobility, the beneficiaries manage their scholarship as they wish. Here's an example I'd like to use to draw your attention to the limits of the amount of per diem that can be granted. Let's imagine for the same duo that the partner coming to Japan to the FWB decides to buy his own flight tickets. He plans to travel to Belgium from May 1st to May 2025, so for a total of 20 days. The maximum amount of per diem he can receive in this case is 100 euros multiplied by 20 days, which makes 2,000 euros. He decides to buy his flight tickets himself, and on the principle that's totally okay. As I mentioned earlier, the cost he spent in buying these tickets won't be deducted from his scholarship, so he should get 3,500 euros in full as per diem. The problem here, as you can see, is that the maximum per diem allowed is 2,000 euros, so he actually won't be able to receive his full scholarship if he leaves for 20 days and pays for his flight tickets himself or via another source of funding. So what will happen with the remaining 1,500 euros? Either the FWB partner has not yet completed his mobility, in which case this amount can be transferred to him, or the FWB partner has already completed his mobility, as this is the case here, in which case these 1,500 euros are lost. So we strongly advise that scholarship holders pay particular attention to this situation when deciding on the duration of their mobility. As I have already said, scholarship holders must submit a mission report no later than 2 months after their return. The aim of this report is to describe in a maximum of 4 pages 6 elements. First is summary of the project, and this should not be too long as we expect it to be mainly a contextualization of the project and the mobility. Second, the actions or the research carried out during the visit and the results that have been obtained. So, for example, what research you've done, what meetings and discussions you've had and with who, what courses you've given, and so forth. Third, the course of the visit. So how the visit was organized to meet the objectives that were set out in the application. For the impact of your visits on your institution. So for example, via experimentation with new techniques or new equipment, access to certain data, contacts and discussion you might have with, you may have had to develop new mobility programs, new research collaborations, and so forth. The contribution of the ASEMDO program to this particular project, and last but not least, positive points and improvements to be made to the ASEMDO program. And this last point is important for us because it allows us to evaluate the program as such and to make some improvements in the future if needed. We'll now go through the process to submit an application, which is made up of 4 elements. First, the application form that has been completed by both candidates. There is no point in sending us an application form or dossier that is not complete. We frequently receive questions about how to find a partner if you do not yet have contact with a professor or researcher at the institution of your choice, or even if you do not know which institution to contact first. I'd just like to remind that RS, as a federation of institutions, has no contact with researchers and professors in connection with their research or area of expertise. We cannot help you find a partner, but what we advise you to do first is to contact your own department or institution to see what partnerships already exist. And if no partnerships exist, we recommend that you contact the international relations department of the institution or institutions with which you would like to collaborate. They will be they will really be in a better position to relay your request to the relevant departments or individuals. Secondly, and as I already mentioned, the application must include a copy of the academic cooperation agreements between the two institutions. Third, the application must include a copy of each candidate's valid passport or identity card. And lastly, the resume of each candidate, maximum 5 pages each. Importantly, it is, wait, I believe here, yeah. Importantly, it is the person in charge of international relations at the FWB institution who must send the application to RS. It is this person who must send the complete application to RS and who carries out the final check to ensure that all the documents are in order and meet the conditions mentioned. And last but not least, applications must be sent before March 29th, 2024. So if you want to apply for an XMDO scholarship, it is important that you get organized early enough to find a partner and gather all the relevant documents, because no applications will be accepted after this date. Here you can see the provisional calendar. So the call for applications opened a bit less than a month ago and will remain open until midnight on March 29th. After evaluation by the ASMDO jury, applicants will receive an email on July 1st informing them whether or not their application has been selected, and at the same time, the selected duo will receive an agreement containing information about the scholarship holders and their projects to be signed and returned to RS by August 30th at the latest. As I already mentioned, mobilities must take place between August 1st, 2024 and August 31st, 2025, and all reports must be returned to RS by October 30th, 2025 at the latest, but this applies in particular to those completing their mobility in August 2025. And of course, if a partner in the duo encounters difficulties in carrying out their mobility, they are asked to inform RS and their partner as soon as possible so that a solution or alternative to their mobility can be found. Now, what about the potential procedure that a scholarship holder would have to go through to obtain a visa before completing their mobility? RS is not involved in the procedure for obtaining a visa if one is required for the mobility. The procedure must be carried out by the scholarship holder himself or herself. But we can draw up, if necessary, a document certifying that the scholarship holder has indeed obtained a scholarship and indicating the amount. If you want to know if you would need to obtain a visa to come to Belgium, I advise you go through the list of countries whose nationals require a visa to come to Belgium, and this list is available on the website of the Belgian Immigration Office. Voilà, this includes my presentation of the ASMDO Wallonia-Brussels program. I hope it has given you a good understanding of the objectives and conditions of the scholarship. And we will now answer the questions that we received in the chat room. So the first one, I would like to know if a permanent faculty member working in a university and at the same time taking a PhD study is eligible. So as I have said, the candidates must have a position as researcher or professor as their main occupation. So this has been written on the website and in the call for application. So if the main position is a permanent contract as faculty member, that should be okay. Second, what it means numbers of scholarship is limited to 7. So the total budget of the program is limited and the program is competitive. So in total, we can award 7 scholarships for 7 duos per year, so per call of application. Third, I wonder if we can get a full list of potential FWB partners for exchange with Asia Pacific candidates. So there are 5 universities, 19 university colleges, and 16 schools of arts, and 81 adult higher education institutions in the Wallonia-Brussels Federation. And the full list is available on the website Study in Belgium. And I would ask you to go to the fact section on our website to find these institutions. Is it possible for you to share a sample of the proposal? No, I'm afraid this is not possible, but in the application form, there is an explanation of what is expected for each part of the application in terms of number of words, criteria, and so forth. So everything is explained in the form that is available on our website. 5, can the letter of intent be signed by the professors in charge of the collaboration? The authorities are not keen to sign a letter of intent before the project is held. Often this project is a first step, and it is only after the project that the professors will be able to ask for an official engagement of the institution with an intention of signing an agreement only if needed for the collaboration. No, so the authorities need to sign the documents to show a real intention on establishing a long-term collaboration. There is no strict obligation, though. We do not check afterwards that an agreement has been effectively signed. The minimum of 18 days of an 18-day stay, is it at a single institution or both? So it is 18 days minimum for each candidate in the partner institution. Each partner of the duo has to make a mobility in the next in the partner institution abroad. So yeah, it is 18 days. It is a 19-day stay for each partner minimum. New question: should it be 1 person from each side? Yes, it is 1 person of each side, so two people from the duo that will receive the scholarship. Next question: if I'm an administrative position, but next semester I will work as a faculty member to open new master's program, am I eligible to the scholarship? You need to be, so we need to analyze this, but I would say you need to be you need to be part of the staff, academic staff, or researchers. Sorry, you need to be part of the academic or research staff during your mobility. So, but you can still send us a question. Send us this question by email. Our university has not yet an MOU, but we intend to refer with declaration of intent. There is a professor with research interest in composite material and in industrial processes. How can he find a partner professor? So I already mentioned this question during my presentation. So first, if there is no MOU yet existing, I suggest you go to the website that is referred to on our website and address this question to international relation officers in the universities here in FWB. Next question, is it possible to combine mobility with days off at the end of the assignment? What we ask is that the mobility you do, like the mobility you complete in for the ASEM-Duo program is minimum 18 days and maximum 60 days. But if you wish to combine with days off after the assignments, you can organize yourself as you wish. This is not for us to decide. Next question, is there at least a template of the proposal on the website? Of the proposal? So no, there is. So I guess you speak about the letter of intent. So this is a co-signed letter or two separate signed letters from the authorities of both institutions or their representatives that states the intention of both parties to sign an interinstitutional agreement within the next 2 years. But this is free format. There is no specific format that is imposed for this letter. If applicants from different disciplines, how to find a pair partner? So so we advise you ask your own department or institution if to see if partnerships already exist and with which faculties here in FWB. But the intention is really to build long-term collaboration between two institutions. So you decide which partner you would like to work with, but I advise you really analyze which institutions here in the Wallonia Brussels Federation have professors or researchers working in the discipline you'd like to work and collaborate with. Last but not least, is there a minimum validity of the prerequisite MOU between both institutions? No, there is no prerequisite about this. There is no minimum validity expected. Okay, so I think this is the end of the questions we received. If you still have any questions, sorry, I didn't see there are 2 more questions. I am from Pakistan, so I'm going to travel to Brussels for 18 days, right? Yes, that is correct. And last, for the submissions, 29th of March is the date for the submission. So the application should reach earlier the Belgian. I do not understand this question. 29th of March is the date for the submission by International Relations Officer at the Belgian institution, so the application should reach earlier the Belgian. Yes, that is better because as the application should be sent to us on the 29th of March, you need this application to be complete. So you never know what can happen, the difficulty to obtain the approval from some authorities in your own institution. So it is better indeed to send all the documents to the international relations officer at the FWB institution in advance, so that he can make sure that all documents are in order before sending it to the to RS. And sometimes even you can say in advance if some documents won't be available before the deadline, but you need to know that before, way before, in advance. So we advise you contact and send all the documents, both so from the researcher from FWB and the Asia Pacific partner country in advance, so that the international relations officer can make sure everything is in order, and or like tell us in advance what are the difficulties in gathering all the documents. Voilà, I believe these are all the questions. If you still have any questions, do not hesitate to send us an email, and we'll try to reply to you quickly. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar, and we wish you a very good week. Bye. Thank you very much.